What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 142. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on this episode and this channel where we just discuss movies here. New movies that come out in streaming or in theaters. What we do on this podcast is we break it up into two different sections. First section, we go through high-level thoughts, opinions, and a recommendation whether you should check this movie out in theaters, wait for it on streaming, or maybe just skip it entirely. And in the second part of the podcast, we spoil the movie even more, talk about some of the reasons why we loved it, why we hated it, and then decide if it is timeless. Can I see myself rewatching this movie various different times in the future? Before we jump into this week's episode, I did want to highlight that Timeless Movie Podcast is available on all platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Give us a listen, subscribe, leave us a comment, a review. Would love to hear you guys' feedback about prior episodes. Speaking of prior episodes that we just talked about, on episode 141, I ended up talking about the new A24 movie called Eddington. This one is Ari Aster's newest film. Very divisive, a lot of different types of opinions and thoughts about this movie. So if you want to hear one more opinion, go ahead and check out Timeless Movie Podcast. That way you can hear what my thoughts are in regards to this film, what I enjoyed the most, and if I thought it was timeless. All right, let's go ahead and jump in to this week's episode in which we are covering Marvel's newest film, The Fantastic Four: First Steps. This is the final Marvel movie of 2025, and as you already know, I am freaking pumped to be talking about this one. So I'm not going to waste too much time on the background and the thoughts as to, oh, well, why did I want to watch this? Or what were some things that were in my head before watching this movie. Instead, I just want to let you know that, again, I'm excited, but I actually have no real connection to these Fantastic Four characters. I've actually never seen the prior Fantastic Four movies, like maybe all the way through. I've seen a couple of scenes here and there, some that pop up on Instagram and social media, but I never really cared to watch these old movies. And so very similar to my experiences on Superman when we talked about that a couple of episodes ago, I never really had a true connection to these characters. I never had a Fantastic Four group that I really loved. And so I'm coming in with those types of expectations of, well, I'm hoping that this group will be the one that I want to continue to see moving forward. So that'll be really the overall thoughts that I wanted to give. Now that we got to check it out on opening night, let's go ahead and segue over to the non-spoiler section of this podcast. Okay, after leaving the theaters and watching Fantastic Four: First Steps, I got to call it out. I actually watched it twice. The first time, you guys would be disappointed in me, but there was a crazy amount of people. I ended up missing a couple of the first minutes of the movie, so I thought, you know what? No, I can't record this. I got to do it and watch it one more time before I actually get into this specific mindset and start talking about the movie. So, watched it twice, and both times I had such a great time at the theater watching it. This movie is so fun, man. It succeeds in introducing 4 new members into this Marvel universe. 4 members that, you know, for some people, they might already be familiar with. But for me, again, it does what Marvel does best when it comes to introducing new characters. It really succeeds in showing off who these characters are, how different they are from maybe prior characters that we've seen, how different they are from each other, but also shows the chemistry of all 4 of them, whether it's, Sue, Reed, Johnny, or Ben. They nailed the introduction of all 4 of these characters, and each actor that portrays them, just the performance that they put on was just so awesome. I was so I wouldn't say I related to any one of these characters, but I was just so excited to see them interacting, see them talking to each other, the different scenarios and scenes that they would get into. And it just felt like a real family. It felt like they actually cared about each other. And so for that, I think Marvel succeeded in this film. What this film also succeeded in is giving a fresh spin on a Marvel movie. And what I mean by that is this film feels very different. It feels like it takes place in another world, because it does. They made it very clear this is an alternate universe, and they actually put in the effort to make this feel like not the Earth that we're used to. It's very retro futuristic. It has like the attire that they wear, the design of everything. It's still New York, but it just looks a lot more futuristic, even though it looks like we're kind of taking a look at the past. And so the way that they set everything up, the sci-fi elements, everything about space, all of those types of cool aesthetics that they included in this film is right down my alley. I freaking loved it. Every time they showed a scene in space where they showed all these sci-fi moments in the movie, I was just all in those specific parts of the film. So again, they nailed it in those areas. Those are really kind of some high-level thoughts. I also wanted to call out, this almost feels like one of those classic MCU movies where, and what I mean by classic, I mean, like those ones where they would introduce a new character like Captain America, the First Avenger, or Thor, or Doctor Strange, or Ant-Man. It feels like one of those movies where we know that it's in the MCU, we know that they're going to play a part in some capacity in the upcoming films, but it still feels like a great way to expand the lore and expand on adding more characters while having them be like in a standalone story. So that's kind of what it most reminded me of after watching Fantastic Four. All right, let me go ahead and give you a little bit of a plot synopsis. This won't be too long. It's actually a very simple and straightforward story, which I think is a good thing. But essentially, this film revolves around the Fantastic Four, and in their universe, Universe 828, they are beloved by everybody. They are the protectors of this world, and they essentially have been the Fantastic Four, I believe, for like the last 4 years, and they just show this cool highlight reel of them doing all this great stuff and protecting the world from different dangers. But then, all of a sudden, one night, the Herald of Galactus comes, the Silver Surfer, and she comes to basically announce to Earth that their time has come. They have been chosen to be devoured by Galactus. And so now the Fantastic Four are put in a position where they have to sacrifice one of their own family members. In order to save the Earth, they sacrifice one of their own. And if they don't, well, the entire Earth gets devoured by Galactus. That's essentially the story, guys. That's really it. Again, it's very straightforward, very fun and entertaining watch. Again, overall, I had a blast. There's a lot of funny moments, as you would expect in a Marvel film, but everything that they included in this movie, again, whether it's the characters interacting, whether it's them facing off against Galactus, all of the different types of visuals that they included within the film, and just a lot of the emotion of the movie also worked for me. I know that a lot of times when we watch these Marvel movies, we think about all the action and the CGI, but really this film had a lot of good interactions between a family, and it just felt so real, something that you can attach yourself to. So that just a lot of good stuff. Let me cover a couple of high-level pros and cons if you're still kind of thinking about maybe checking out this movie. Hopefully this will kind of help you decide whether you should or shouldn't check it out. All right, first pro that I wanted to call out was, and if you've listened to me on prior episodes, this will just sound like a broken record, so again, apologies for those that have listened already, but to me, one of the biggest pros of Fantastic Four First Steps is the visual effects. I thought they were excellent. Now, I got to make it clear, I have no experience as a visual effects artist. I don't know what it takes to build something like that in a scene. I know that it's a lot of work, and it's something that I have no experience in. But from every single thing that I saw in this movie, whether it was Johnny flaming and flying through the sky, whether it was Ben just going through a couple of pillars as the Thing, whether it was Galactus, Silver Surfer, whether it was Reed using his stretchy abilities to go through the city, no matter what it was, everything just looked so clean. And I think what makes it work even better is that it doesn't take you out of the experience. Sometimes when you watch films and they have a lot of CGI, sometimes those types of moments, with one little hiccup where, okay, something looks off, and then you start looking for it, and then you start analyzing the scenes a little bit more, and then it takes you out of the story, and that's where everything kind of breaks down. And what I love most is that these four characters, Sue, Reed, Johnny, and Ben, they all have abilities. They all have very unique things, and it takes a lot of visual effects. And yet I was never distracted. Everything just looks so smooth. And again, it made me not analyze the scenes for the visual effects. Instead, I focused more on the story, more on the characters. What were they going through? And so, great job on all the digital artists, the visual effects, the CGI. Everything just looked incredible in this movie. All right, speaking of some of the characters, let me talk about the second pro that I had in regards to Fantastic Four. It's come on, I got to talk about them, guys. The four characters, the Fantastic Four, the family, their chemistry was on point. Every time they were either on a mission, whether they were at the Baxter building, their banter with each other was just so real. It just felt like, oh, when you would hear Johnny and Ben like argue and talk to each other, it would feel like two brothers. Like if you have a brother, you would feel like, okay, yeah, they would get into these types of little arguments or discussions, and it wasn't anything negative or anything like that. It was just more of like, hey, just telling each other what to do. It's fun because it's relatable. Then you would have Sue and Reed, their relationship of being married, of dealing with having to face this tough decision about Galactus. And whenever they would get into discussions and also in some arguments, it would feel like something that you've experienced in your life. And I always enjoy when movies can put you in that kind of a place where, yes, these characters are superhuman, they're metahumans, but if they're able to put me in that same position and almost kind of walk in their shoes, it makes for a much more enjoyable time when I'm watching a movie or a story. So that whole collective of the Fantastic Four, their chemistry, how they work together, and really whenever you get to the third act, you're so excited because again, the four of them just work so well in tandem that you know that they can get through and solve anything. So the four characters, four actors, they nailed it in regards to their chemistry. All right, last pro. I've said it once. I will say it again. The alternate universe aspect of this movie is really something that I think was just such a clever decision to make. We've seen so many Marvel movies already. We've seen so many that are in the MCU that feel like our world, very modern. Here again, they completely change it. They make this feel like the 1960s, but again, very futuristic, something that is just very different. And they have all these different aesthetics as well. The costumes, the suits that the Fantastic Four wear, feel of those places. All the citizens that live in New York, in this alternate New York, feels like it's a different place. Again, very familiar, yet still very different. And so again, that whole aspect of just showing a different universe, I think is a great job. And I kind of wish Marvel would do that a little bit more. A lot of times when we watch these, phase 4 or phase 5 movies, you have like Ant-Man or Thor, Love and Thunder or Multiverse of Madness. You have all these movies and they all kind of start feeling very similar, have that same kind of flavor that they're trying to offer you. Whereas here, you have something completely different. It feels all like it's a place that, it seems like, oh yeah, from the 1960s when they had the space race and like all these different types of stuff, but yet it feels so futuristic. So just, I hope that in the future, I hope that Marvel kind of takes note and that every film should have its own kind of flavor, its own color, its own type of style. That way you can really pinpoint, oh yeah, do you remember watching Fantastic Four? Did you remember watching Thunderbolts and how different those colors were? And so all that different stuff I think just adds to my enjoyment of this movie. All right, let me say the cons that I had, which are none. I had no notes. I always like to repeat this though. Even though I have no notes or no cons, doesn't mean that the movie is perfect to me. This is not a 10 out of 10. I just don't have any notes. I don't have anything that I can really pinpoint after watching it a couple of times that, I can see that like really makes this experience less fun. Instead, I kind of leave it selfishly wanting more. I want more of the Fantastic Four. I want to see them already in Doomsday. I want to see how they begin to interact with the Thunderbolts, with some of our other familiar MCU characters. And so no cons, no nitpicks, just from a selfish perspective, I wish I could get more of these characters now. Okay, those are all of my high-level thoughts without spoiling too much of Fantastic Four First Steps. Pretty sure it's obvious that I really had a great time watching this movie, but just want to give you a recommendation. Mine would be definitely check this out. If you can watch it in IMAX or Dolby Cinema, it would just make that experience a whole lot better. And I also think that this film has the benefit of it's not based in anything that we've seen before in the MCU. It's its own standalone story. You don't have to do homework. You don't have to watch the Thunderbolts, Captain America Brave New World. You don't have to watch anything prior to this in the MCU. So it's a great starting point to just get to know 4 new characters, to see how they interact, and really to show how good they are in regards to trying to save their world. So that's my recommendation. Check this one out in theaters. This is a lot of fun. If you also like space and sci-fi stuff, there's a lot of that in this film as well. Or I wouldn't say a lot, but I would say that there's a couple of great scenes and great moments that really show off some of the sci-fi influences that they had as well. So that's my recommendation for the Fantastic Four First Steps. Okay, now that we've talked about non-spoiler stuff, let's go ahead and move over to the spoiler section of this podcast. So if you do not want to be spoiled by anything in regards to the Fantastic Four, please leave this episode now, watch the movie, come back, and in the comments, let me know after you listen to the episode whether you agree or disagree with some of these points that I'm going to make and whether you agree with my decision of this film being timeless. All right, hopefully that rambling gave you enough time in order to get away before I start spoiling stuff. So here we go. Last warning, spoilers from here on out. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. First question that we have to ask ourselves, and really the most important question, is Fantastic Four timeless? Is it a movie that I, Victor, can see myself rewatching various different times? Probably already spoiled it because I told you that I watched it twice, but I will say Fantastic Four First Steps is a timeless movie. I can see myself checking this movie out various different times, but let's go into more details. Why? Why is this film timeless for me, in my opinion? Let me start with the first one. Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. The character of Reed Richards in this movie and how he's portrayed is, to me, it was just so damn good. They portray Reed as a tortured soul. Now, another clarification that I should have made very clear. I have no history of the Fantastic Four in movies or in comics. So in the comments down below of this video on Spotify, let me know, guys. Give me a heads up on whether they always portray Reed like this. I'm assuming he is portrayed in that sense, but to me, the way that they actually showed Reed just be a individual that is just struggling with his own intelligence, and not from the perspective of like, oh, well, he has so many things kind of going through his mind, but it's from the perspective of, and he makes it very clear, Reed is always thinking of the worst scenarios, of bad things that can happen to him, to his family, to the world. And because of his intelligence, because of the mind that he is the smartest man in this world, in this universe. All he can think about is try to figure out ways to help his family and anything else that he can. He comes up with technologies, solutions, whatever he can. But then he also ends up saying how challenging it is. He can't wander. He can't dream about anything because all his mind can think about is trying to solve problems. And they show it various different times in this movie. You know, you see him like writing on the chalkboard. You see him coming up with ways to transport different types of elements. And every single time he's just always focused, always working. And even tells Johnny, he's like, hey, like I'm not scared. I'm just busy. You know, I'm busy working on stuff. And he's always got something on his mind. But there's also a point where he has to make a decision. And, you know, again, spoilers like once more time. But in this film, we actually get Franklin Richards, which is the son of Sue and Reed. And he has to make a choice. He either has to give up his son to Galactus or let the world be devoured. And there's one moment where he's thought of every possible solution. He's tried to move the Earth. He's tried to figure out ways to stop Galactus from coming to this planet. He does all he can. And at the end, he just looks at his son and it almost feels like in his mind, he's not saying anything, but he almost thinks like he's analytically, this might be the only choice. And he goes to his chalkboard and he can't write anything. He is, for the first time in this movie, unable to think about a solution in regards to the problem that he is facing. So the way that they were able to do that, Pedro Pascal, again, to me is a great actor. He was able to, just sometimes with facial reactions, when Reed had an idea or whenever he was faced with something that he was thinking through, it just looked like he actually was in that moment struggling to decide, well, should I be making this decision? Should I be coming up with this solution? So the way that they portrayed Reed, again, as this tortured individual, just worked so well for me. I loved everything about it. And he was really my favorite performance. There's great performances by Vanessa Kirby as Sue, as well as Joseph Quinn as Johnny, and as well as Eben Mas Bacharach as the Thing. But I don't know. To me, I just really enjoyed seeing the struggle of Reed Richards, seeing him like become a father, and everybody around him could tell that he was nervous. He tried to deny it, but everybody knew like he has a tell where he is very nervous, and so I just really enjoyed that aspect of him like trying to fight it, but he couldn't. He always has this mind to try to come up with different types of solutions, and sometimes that can hurt his family. So really good stuff. I really enjoyed Reed as a character, and throughout the entire film, I was just always interested to see how he came up with different solutions and ideas, and whenever he was stuck, like how he would just try to get out of it or get the help of his family to get out of those situations. So really love that stuff. Second reason this movie is timeless is the counterpart to Reed. You have Sue Storm, played by Vanessa Kirby. She had an amazing performance as well. She really is the leader of the Fantastic Four. That, I think, to me is, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, anybody that's listening, again, if you guys know the comics, maybe that's already a well-known thing. But to me, I was always thinking that Reed was the captain or the leader of this group. No, in this film, Sue Storm is the true leader of this group. She is the strongest character. Her psionic abilities are able to basically push Galactus into this teleportation bridge that they've created in order to stop him and send him away. She is really the Omega level character in this movie. But it's Vanessa Kirby's performance also that really helps just elevate this group all together. She always has this nature of like wanting to help, and she also delivers really the best message of the movie. She has this moment where, once again, they have to make a sacrifice, and what's so cool is that the entire world wants the Fantastic Four to give up Franklin too, because nobody wants to get devoured, nobody wants to lose their loved ones, and Sue has to basically deliver really one of the most heartfelt moments of this movie, which is, we have to all work together. Yes, it's super easy. The easy decision is to just give up my child, but I will not do that. She says very clearly, I will not sacrifice Franklin for this world, but I will also not sacrifice the world for my son. And so that line was my favorite line, and how Vanessa Kirby delivered it was just so cool. Like it just showed that, she understands the situation. Obviously, she knows that her decision of wanting to protect her son and not give her away is going to cost the world, but she's not going to give up. She's going to come up with a plan. She wants the entire world to come together, and together, not just the Fantastic Four, but the world, Earth, can try to combat Galactus when he arrives. So the way that Vanessa Kirby played that, and even in other elements throughout the film, she's the one that brokers a deal with Mole Man. She's the one that actually sets up a discussion with Mole Man and convinces him to help the citizens of the Earth to go underground so that they're protected, so that they're evacuated and not having to deal with the tragic events that might occur with Galactus. She's the one that's brokering deals with other countries to get materials to create these bridges that Reed is looking for. So the way that Sue is also displayed in this movie is also really incredible, and it was a surprise to me. Again, I'm not in the know. Again, I don't know the history of the Fantastic Four, so everybody in the comments, you guys can let me know that obviously I'm a rookie. I don't know any comics, so if you have any comics that represent Sue as the leader of the Fantastic Four, let me know. I would love to read those and just to explore more of this character, because she really just had this very strong type of attitude, yet she was also very caring, and she just had this type of emotion that you can, again, relate to. You can actually feel that she is this kind of really good motherly figure for Franklin, but also she's a great figure for this team, something that they can look up to. So really enjoyed that piece of it. So Sue Storm is, again, one of the other reasons why I really enjoyed this movie. Okay, moving on. Another reason why. I got a lot of reasons, guys, so I might go a little bit long, but another reason I really think this movie is timeless is Michael Giacchino's music. My goodness, this guy is on a roll. He's made the film scores for Spider-Man No Way Home. He's made the music for the Batman, and now he is back for the Fantastic Four. And this main theme song for the Fantastic Four is just so damn catchy. Like even a year before the movie came out, they already had the main theme for this set of individuals. And I've just been so excited to hear the score. And as soon as it came out and in watching the scenes, you can hear the music kind of being influenced by different types of instruments and just being used in different situations. One of the things that I really love about scores is when a specific group or when a specific character might have a theme, I love when they use the theme in different types of tones. Sometimes it might be very somber, might be very sad. Other times it might be very energetic, very happy. And so I love that they did that in this film for the Fantastic Four. They use those notes and they just play them in different ways. Some of our favorite movies, like Jurassic Park, has done that in certain ways. Star Wars has done that. The Lord of the Rings. So I just enjoy when the main theme is used in very creative ways. So Michael Giacchino, just props to you. As soon as I left the theater, I went straight to Spotify, listened to the entire score. It's just so damn good, and it's catchy. You keep humming it. Bum 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 bum. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering it, but it's just a great song, and I really do think, especially from a superhero perspective, and really just anything in regards to a franchise, you really have to have good music, because that music will kind of attach itself to your brain, and then the audience will really love and start wanting to hear that song. And when that song does come on, it just gives you goosebumps. It gets you excited for what's to come. So really enjoyed that piece of it. Michael Giacchino and his score is another reason why I thought this movie was just so damn terrific. All right, moving on to another point of why I think this is timeless. We got to talk about it. Galactus and the Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer was actually given the name of shalla-bal. Anytime Galactus and the Silver Surfer were on screen, I was hooked. Their music was also really cool. The way that it was just a lot more darker. It was, again, very like dire. It was, you felt the dread, because you know that they're having to basically decide a planet is going to be destroyed and billions of creatures, billions of people are going to die. And so anytime Galactus and the Silver Surfer were on screen, you just knew that it was all about business. Now, let me start off with the visual effects. Silver Surfer and Galactus, again, they looked amazing. The Silver Surfer, when she first appeared, just the way that her entire body was all chrome, the surfboard, everything, she just looked so damn cool. It reminded me again of I want to say the T-1000. I'm pretty sure I'm messing that up, but from Terminator, it just looked like another kind of version of that. And she never had any other type of facial reaction, always serious. And then you have Galactus, which is probably the figure that just looked so menacing, so threatening. The first time he appeared in this movie, you have the Fantastic Four actually go visit him on his ship. They're trying to negotiate with Galactus not to devour the Earth. And when they are presented to Galactus, you're looking at this very dark shadow. You don't see him. And then all of a sudden, these blue or purple eyes glow. And then you see the figure start getting closer and closer. And that was probably my favorite shot of the movie, or one of them, really. The first appearance of Galactus, he just looks so damn terrifying. He looked like a Celestial, like the first time we saw a Celestial in the Eternals, and how gigantic and colossal they looked. It's just so impressive, and it really, just watching it on the screen just really captured it, especially in IMAX, how massive. And then you're able to see all of the Fantastic Four and how small they look. But that one shot of the first appearance of Galactus was really, really incredible. But going back to it, one of the other reasons why, other than just visually, I enjoyed the aspects of the Silver Surfer and Galactus, I also liked Galactus's motivation. You would think that something that devours and eats planets, he just might be pure evil, but no, he obviously needs the planets in order to keep himself alive, and he also has a mission. He feels that Franklin Richards, the son of Reed and Sue, is his successor. So he basically just wants to rest. He doesn't want to devour planets anymore. He doesn't want to go from solar system to solar system and just find planets to eat. He wants to finally be put to rest. and he feels like Franklin is the key. And so it makes it very clear in a couple of lines of dialogue that, again, he obviously it is still very terrifying and still very evil on what he's doing because he's getting rid of planets, he's getting rid of creatures that live there, getting rid of all this stuff that has life. But he's doing it for the reason of like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be in this prison. And so really like that kind of aspect of Galactus. And then the Silver Surfer, I mean, even she has her own motivations. You know, she made the ultimate sacrifice by basically becoming the Herald of Galactus because she actually made a decision and made a deal with Galactus. Her planet was chosen to be destroyed. And then instead, she told Galactus that she would be his agent. She would be the one that would now go and decide which planets get chosen. And so she had her own kind of history and her own set of decisions to make. And you could see the pain that it would cause her when she would have to decide. She would try to ignore the noise, ignore what people were crying out for help for, and she would just try to stay straight-faced. So just unbelievable stuff from, again, adding the color, adding the depth to Galactus and shalla-bal just adds for more enjoyment to this movie because they're not just villains now. They're actual characters. They're actual beings that need to accomplish something. And it just makes you be able to understand. You know, it might not be the right decision to devour a planet, obviously, but it makes you understand why they're doing what they're doing. So another great aspect to this movie. All right. One other kind of aspect that I also enjoyed that I wanted to bring up was in this movie, the film starts off with the Fantastic Four being loved, being, you know, cherished, being revered as celebrities. And eventually there comes a point where you have Galactus obviously be introduced, and then, you know, the Fantastic Four come back from the failed negotiation with Galactus, and then Reed has to admit, and this is another moment of why his performance was so good, is that at the beginning of the movie, he's so confident. He's like, we will protect Earth at all cost. And then when he comes back from after facing Galactus, he looks like a defeated man. He looks like there is no other choice. We have no other thing, and we cannot protect this Earth. And somebody even asks him, are we safe? Can you protect us? And he says, I don't know. And he just looks like he has this disdain on his face, like he does not have an answer. And what ends up happening? The entire world turns on the Fantastic Four. Now they start booing them. They're scared. They want to have them turn in Franklin, and they turn to hate. And so that whole aspect of turning on the hero, I always love that. I enjoy when a hero is not just beloved all the way through. There's got to be a little bit of conflict. I'm glad that there wasn't conflict within the family. Rather, I wanted there to be conflict between the Earth and the Fantastic Four, and that just makes sense in my head because then you're expecting the redemption. You're expecting the Earth to turn around and be like, well, we made a mistake. You guys were really the true protectors. We never should have doubted you. And that's exactly what happens. But I really love when there's that tension of heroes being turned on. Now, guys, stay with me here. I think it's actually pretty crazy that we've had two superhero films. We had Superman and we had the Fantastic Four, both coming out in the same month. But there's so many similarities in both films. If you actually notice, and if you've seen both of them, they both have heroes being turned on. Superman had, Metropolis turn on him and the world. Fantastic Four, same thing. Superman also faced off against a antagonist, and one of the members of the antagonist ends up turning on them and ends up helping Superman in some way. Same thing happens here in the Fantastic Four. The Herald of Galactus, Silver Surfer, ends up having a change of heart and ends up helping the Fantastic Four to get rid of Galactus. Then you also have another element in regards to how these two films are similar. You have robots that help the heroes. Herbie in Fantastic Four is there to help out the Fantastic Four family with anything that comes up with Franklin. And then Superman has its own robots. And so there's all these different things. There's so many similarities in these movies. Again, I'm pretty sure that it wasn't on purpose, but there's so many different things that ended up coming up that just felt so similar. And I think it's just because of how close both films came out that I just noticed that and I picked that up after I watched this movie. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of similarities in regards to both of these superhero films. And again, both of the films start with the heroes already being known. Superman has already been Superman for 3 years. The Fantastic Four have already been the Fantastic Four for 4 years. So, so many different things. But let me know in the comments if you guys picked that up. If that's obvious, I'm pretty sure it is to you guys. But if you guys had picked that up, let me know down below in the comments. Okay, a couple more things that I wanted to call out in regards to my favorite scenes. I gotta say that my favorite moment of this movie was when the Fantastic Four are dealing with Galactus. They're trying to negotiate. They're trying to plead and let them know you cannot devour the Earth. We will negotiate. And after that negotiation fails, they basically have to escape and get out of Galactus's ship. And so what do? They basically go and they start like kind of running away. They try to cause a distraction and they cut off some of the supply lines that are connected to Galactus. And then that whole escape sequence from Galactus's ship all the way to, the Fantastic Four's spaceship, and then eventually they have to go through an entire chase sequence where the Silver Surfer is chasing them. There is a thrilling moment where you have the Silver Surfer, her abilities are to be able to phase through different objects. There is one moment where they think they got away from the Silver Surfer, and instead she phases through and she's about to go through the stomach of Sue Storm to get Franklin, and then boom, they blast off into like a hyperspace and into like a time loop. It was so freaking exciting. That whole chase sequence of them trying to get rid of the Silver Surfer was just so damn awesome because again, it just shows like the intensity, and they're at a point where they don't know what to do. They're trying to shoot, they're trying to kill the Silver Surfer. Sue even at one point just tells Johnny, it's like, kill her. She's trying to kill your nephew. And so like, it's just so many crazy stuff. And then what makes this even more intense is that on top of the chase scene, Sue ends up giving birth to Franklin on the ship. And so that entire sequence was just so exciting. They had so many great moments, so many funny dialogue that was said by the characters, but that whole sequence was awesome. And I think why it just stuck to me was because of the sci-fi elements, the space elements. I was really surprised that they showed like a launch of the Excelsior ship in regards to the Fantastic Four. I love that they showed them escaping and going through like a black hole, or not going through one, but going by one. And they made it feel like you were watching something very similar to Interstellar or any other type of space movie. I love those little details and influences. Really appreciated how they were able to include that in this kind of a film. And again, it kind of takes you back to the retro futuristic kind of style, the aesthetic. It feels like this film was taking place like in the 1960s when we were going to the moon, when we were going to space, and when it was so different, like another endeavor of something that we've never done before. So I really love that kind of aspect of, again, that whole chase sequence, just making it feel exciting, making me feel very intense. And my hands got sweaty because I didn't know what the heck was going to happen. But those are the kind of scenes that just really stand out to me and are scenes that I want to come back to when I watch this movie. All right, last thing that I wanted to call out that I really enjoyed was every character really got their moment. I mentioned Reed being the individual that kind of comes up with the solutions, Sue being the leader and being the one that really brings everybody together. I do want to also call out Johnny. Johnny was the character where, everybody would kind of, not blow him to the side, but they would hear him, but they wouldn't really fully hear him. But he actually is the one that convinces the Silver Surfer to have that change of heart. He's the one that studies her language. He goes through various different types of different signals that they've been able to pick up over the years. He analyzes them, and he's actually the one that has the moment that, again, face to face with the Silver Surfer, convinces her like, hey, you did what you had to do to save your Earth. I have to do mine. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to have you hear all of these different cries for help that you have caused because you keep bringing Galactus to these different planets. And so that whole moment that Johnny got was super awesome. I really enjoyed how they gave him that specific moment to really shine and not just be the guy that gets to sacrifice play or becomes the hero or does something that kind of saves the family. No, he's the one that basically really, he's the one that kind of gets them across the finish line, because at the end, they look like they're not going to be able to push Galactus to this teleportation portal. And who comes in to save the day? It's the Silver Surfer. She has that change of heart, and she ends up slamming right into Galactus and saving the Earth. So Johnny has to get called out for his great moment. And also want to call out that whenever there was this a scene that includes Johnny and the Silver Surfer, those are some of the really coolest scenes too. Whenever they would face off against each other, there's a moment where Johnny tries to follow the Silver Surfer up into space and he grabs onto her board and then they just look at each other and you could just see the sun in the background. Very beautiful shots. Apart from Galactus, some of the best looking shots include the Silver Surfer. I just want to say that as well. Okay, if there was one thing that I just wish we could have gotten more, I know that I'm, again, very selfish. I've already said so many things about why I enjoyed this movie. But if there was one thing that I do wish there was more of in this movie, it's actually Ben Grimm. I wanted more of the Thing. He looks so cool. Everything that they were able to do to make him aesthetically, like, yeah, he's actually there. He doesn't look like he's not just like a visual character. No, he looks like he's physically there interacting with Reed, interacting with Sue, and interacting with Johnny. But I really wish he got more of a moment too. He was like the foundation. He was a supporting character. He was the one that was really supporting all of them. He always had a great banter with Johnny. He had great discussions with Reed, and he always cared about where Sue was and making sure that she was okay. And so, again, he had his moments from a supporting style, but I just wish he had more scenes of just him being like that foundation for the group. And so that's my little selfish thing. I wish we got more of Ben Grimm, but hopefully in Doomsday and some of the future films, we get to see more of Ben. All right. That, I believe, is all I have in regards to my full thoughts of the Fantastic Four First Steps. I rambled. Yeah, I talked for, I think I'm already going on more than 40 minutes, but I really enjoy this movie, guys. Again, to me, this is a really great start for this new phase. It's a great start because now you have four new characters that you can really connect with. And at least in my opinion, I connected with them and I had a great time watching this movie. But more importantly, what do you all think about the Fantastic Four First Steps? Did you enjoy it as much as I did? What were your favorite things? Who was your favorite character? And let me know down below. What do you think about this movie? Is it timeless in your opinion? I want to know. That way we can have some fun interactions in the comments of YouTube or in Spotify as well. All right, everybody. That is all of my thoughts in regards to the Fantastic Four. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 142 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we cover a new movie that we got to check out in theaters or in streaming. We'll break it down just like we did today, and then we'll decide if it is timeless. All right, everybody. Appreciate you, and I'll talk to you all later.